Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello dear friends, welcome to Spiritism and the Media. Today I would like to continue the topic from last week about reading, about the writers and the writings that we have in our daily lives. And I'm bringing another text from Emmanuel, but this time is from the book Our Daily Bread. It is by the Spirit Emmanuel, channeled by Francisco Cândido Xavier. The text I'm bringing is the number 14. It's called Pages. So let's start. First, we have an extract from the Gospel, from James chapter 3, verse 17. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. And now the comment by Emmanuel. Every published page has a soul, and the believer is required to investigate its nature. The sincere examination will immediately indicate to which sphere it pertains, whether in the destructive activity of the world or in the center of construction toward the spiritual life. So let's go slowly, part by part, to see what he's saying here. So he's saying every published page has a soul. So like it has a soul, it comes from a source. So there is always a spirit, incarnate or discarnate spirit, that is behind any written page, any writings that we may face in our daily lives. And here he's asking for us to do a sincere examination of the writings. So by doing that, we can see if this writing is coming from the more elevated sphere or from the lower spheres. And that examination, that analysis, we can do not only when we are talking about the books or the writings, the texts that were channeled by mediums, but also by the ones that we have here on earth. You know, if you watch a few weeks ago a show when I talked about a story about a journalist that was writing under the influence of a lower spirit without knowing that. So in that case, if we examine the text, we would see that he was under influence because he was trying to manipulate the news. He was trying to attack a girl in that story. So by examining that, by analyzing that, we can see that it's not impartial, that the author is going to one or the other way trying to persuade us to change our minds or to convince us to one side of the story. So that's a way for us to examine that in our daily lives. So not only can we do that, or we must do that in the texts that we read from the spirits, from the discarnate spirits, but we can also apply that in any kind of text that we read in our daily life. It can be a text that we see on Facebook, for example, a post on Twitter. Even though it's a very short text, we may see what the author wants us to believe, wants us to lead us to one or the other way. So it's very important for us to analyze, okay, what this person wants me to think or to do with this information, and why this person is giving me this information. Is this information true or not? Because by doing that, we will not deceive ourselves. And he continues, initially the reader, a friend of the truth and righteousness, shall analyze the lines in order to judge the purity of its context, understanding that if its expressions were born of a superior fountain, he or she will encounter the unequivocal signs of peace, of moderation, of fraternal benevolence, of loving comprehension, and finally of the good fruits. So this one we can apply easily to the text, as I was saying, social media on Twitter, because today we can see, like on Twitter, everything is very polarized. So we have the persons who think one way or the other way, and they keep fighting against each other. And many times, no matter which side we are talking about, can we find peace over there? Can we find moderation there? can we find this fraternal benevolence? Because one thing is for us to write, giving an information or giving my own opinion, and the other thing is for us to write like trying to have this speech of hatred, this speech of division, this speech that is going to hurt somebody else. So that are the topics that we need to analyze. And if we face something that is not good for us, especially on social media, just unfollow. It's very easy. Just go there and follow the person, or you can mute the person, for example, on Instagram. So you're not going to receive that on your feed anymore. And it's going to be very healthy for us, because by reading those toxic texts, it also helps us to be in a toxic mood, or stay in a state of confusion, in a state of desperation. So the more we disconnect ourselves from those writings, from those texts that are not healthy to us, the healthier we are going to be in our daily life. And Emmanuel continues, on the other hand, if the page reflects a poisonous human partiality, such a message cannot proceed from the noblest spheres of life. Even though it originates from a supposedly discarnate of an elevated category, if the page does not bring forth harmony and fraternal construction, it is merely a reflection born of inferior conditions. Because we may face the same thing that happened here when we see in the Medium's book. Kardec has a part of the Medium's book, the last part, when he brings many texts for us to analyze and to see if it is true or false, if they are uplifting message or not, and he teaches us how to do that. And we find texts, for example, there are signed by very important names, very important spirits, and after analyzing that, we see that they weren't written by those spirits, because the message that it brings are not elevated. So the same happens here. We may many times see some texts online that are written and they are signed by some famous authors. Some authors, they are still alive, but you know that those people would never write them. Sometimes we have some people that write those texts and they just write those names because they want it to become viral. And so we need to be very aware of that and take care about what we are writing and how we feel and how we react to what we read. And in this last paragraph, Emmanuel says, scrutinize therefore the pages of your contact with the thoughts of others on a daily basis, and be friendly with those that desire your elevation. You do not need to choose the ones that appear more brilliant, but rather those that effect an improvement within you. So it's a little bit more about what he said in the text that I brought last week. It's not about the one, when he says here, the ones that appear more brilliant. It's not about appearance, it's about content. It's what it brings to us. We may see a beautiful book from the outside looking at the cover, but when we read the book, it's not going to be that good for us. So the content is always more important than the appearance, and we should follow that when we are talking about reading and about what we read in our daily lives. So just to finish here our lesson, as usual, I'm going to open a random page from the book Happy Life by the Spirit Joana de Angelis, channeled by Divaldo Pereira Franco. And we have here number 137. Whatever social relationships you maintain, the situations that will take your measure always take you by surprise and find you alone. Friends, companions can share our pain, but your pain will always be your own personal cross. Nor could it be any different. Supported by divine justice, every man pays back according to his debt and grows in conformance with the situation where he erred. Equip yourself with peace and prepare yourself for the inevitable ascension that is required of you. Thank you so much for your company. May God bless all of us, and see you next week.